Graham Snell, leader of a Thurrock Ukip group, and you've been a councillor now for 2 years. So firstly, as a councillor, 2 years as a councillor, how have you enjoyed those 2 years?
It's been great, actually. It's I think the more that I've got into it, the more time I've spent doing it, the more I've enjoyed it, actually. To the extent now that if I'm not doing anything, then I'm worried, because I feel that I need to be doing something. So it sort of gets you like that a little bit. I think, if you really want to do it and really sort of put everything into it, I think you get a lot of rewards back from it.
And to anybody who doesn't, who's not familiar with you or doesn't peer into our films on YouTube from council meetings on Wednesday night, how would you describe your leadership style?
That's probably for others to say rather than myself. I hope it's relaxed. I try to make everybody feel comfortable what they're doing. There's never any, I don't think we have an ego problem anywhere, so it's just really a lot of consensus, just making sure everybody's happy with what they're doing. I'm always there if anybody needs any problems resolving or they've got any issues, they always come and talk to me. So it's a very relaxed sort of easygoing attitude. I think that's been my style, I think. But maybe you should ask one of the other councillors about that.
Okay, and we may well do. One thing I noticed over the last 2 years, and certainly over the last year, is that UKIP councillors are turning up to meetings, they don't sit on the committees, but they're turning up in what looks like a sort of watching and learning. And I haven't really seen that before, but whose idea was that, and what is the purpose of that?
Yeah, that was my idea. UKIP, as you're well aware, have had a sort of a bad rap in the press and the media generally. Now, we can go out and tell people about what we're doing, but that doesn't really cut the mustard. We were expected to be elected and disappear. I think a lot of people expected never to see us again. The only way to counter that really is to just put in some hard work, do the time, do the hours, do the meetings. So we've done that. But beyond that, it's a responsible job, and I think it's incumbent upon anybody that comes into the role to make sure they have as wide a knowledge of everything that goes on as possible. So we've got our guys going to everything, and they all report back. So we're getting sort of information back from virtually every committee, every meeting, and I think it makes us better councillors. I think it makes us a better group and a stronger group for it, and we will continue to do that going on in the future. And
sorry to interrupt. There's a particular committee that you chair.
Yeah.
And it'd be fair to say that the meetings I've been to, you don't pull any punches. Though you do. That is you scrutinise in that committee, don't you?
Again, I think that's what they're called, scrutiny committees, and I think that's what we should be doing, scrutinising. I think in my committee, the HOSC, it's been an interesting year to say the least, and I'm not a big fan of people coming to committee that are presenting us with information that is inaccurate, wrong, misleading, and I think it's fair that we should tell them that. I don't believe in beating around the bush. There is a time for diplomacy, but sometimes there's a time for just telling them as it is and saying, look, this isn't right. I think you need to go away, rethink it, and come back to us later with some better information. And that's by and large how we've been, and that seems to have worked. So.
Okay, so now we spent the first couple of minutes just reflecting on what you've done, etc. But it could be in 3 weeks' time you could be the leader running a council that has a budget of in excess of £100 million. Are you prepared for that?
As prepared as anybody can be, I guess, that's never done it before. Yes, I mean, as I say, I've spent the last 2 years trying to know as much as possible about the council. Myself and Roy Jones have made a particular effort to build a relationship with the officers as well, to build some credibility up, so that I think we've got ourselves to the stage now where we're looked at not as a bunch of idiots that have come in from out of the blue. We've got some credibility. We're known. I think we're pretty steady people. So if it happens and we end up leading, I think we can do a good job at it.
So do you have if this was like the last episode of The Apprentice, I'd expect you to have a business plan. Do you have a plan, a written plan? These people could be portfolio holders. This is what we'd expect in our first year, anything like that?
We have. Yeah, obviously we don't know which people we're going to have, but yes, indeed, we have indeed. We've got a little a plan of the way we think it might go. We've got our ideas of what we might want to achieve in our first sort of little period in charge, if that's the way it turns out. So yeah, we do have a plan. It would be fair to say that the plan isn't anything radical. It's one of the good things about council is that because we've been so involved, there's been very few decisions that have been made that we haven't been a part of everywhere along the way. So I don't think we would need necessarily to change very much. It's just to keep it on the way it's been going. Maybe a few little tweaks here and there, a few things that are dear to our hearts maybe.
But is that the message you're putting out on the street? Because if I get the messages from, if I read social media, that there are people on Twitter saying, Thurrock Council's disastrous, Thurrock Council's going to hell in a handcar, housing is dreadful. Not, I think we need a few little tweaks here and there. In fact, is that a bit of a confused message?
It's not a message we're putting out. We feel that sometimes the council does indeed get a bad rap. I don't think it is as bad as some people say it is. I think there are areas that always make any area, not just Thurrock, look bad. I think fly tipping is a classic. Rubbish generally is one that makes everybody think everything's bad. The potholes are another one. So things like that we would like to tackle. But obviously there's until you get in charge and you see what you're able to do, because that's a big thing. A lot of people don't understand this, is that it's all very well coming saying what we want to do A, B, C and D. That's great. Everybody has those plans. And then you arrive and then look at what you've got and then think, actually we may not be able to do everything we want to do, but you try and do what you can do with the resources that you're given. So there are things we'll try to do when we get in, which will be a little bit different to what they are now, but the general trend will be, look, there's no boats that need rocking here. It's just let's keep this borough, because at the end of the day, if the borough is stable, if the council's stable, that's got to be good for the people of Thurrock.
So what about housing? What would you say would need either tweaking? If you're saying tweaking about housing in Thurrock, what would you say needs tweaking?
There is a problem. There's no doubt there's a problem with repairs. Repairs has been an issue since I got elected, and it's still an issue now. We've got to do something about those, and we've got some things in the pipeline that we would like to bring in, should we get the chance to after the election.
So what does that mean? What is Lynn Worrell's department doing wrong?
I think there's been over time. I think Lynn is very, very loyal to her team, and I think sometimes you get too close, and I think you don't see that actually there are some issues there that need dealing with. It's very easy to get the results come back from the surveys that say everything's rosy in the kitchen, but it isn't. And we're getting people come to us all the time, every week, with issues of repairs either not being done, people not turning up to appointments, or repairs being done extremely badly. And when we went, Councillor Baker went up to Manchester, and I think what he discovered there was that the people doing the phone surveys, they're only getting, for every 25 phone calls, maybe about 8 responses. So that's not a very big pool of people to base your figures on. And we're seeing a really substantial number of people that are not happy, and I think we can do something about that. I think we can do something about the quality of the work that's being done. There's all sorts of things we can tweak, and we'll try to do that.
The council's education department have seems like less and less power over, or influence regarding the schools. For example, the Conservative government want to force academies.
Yeah.
So very much schools like Great Grace Convent, Treetops, outstanding schools, says Ofsted. So, and in fact, or proposing perhaps get rid of parent governors. So issues like that, I haven't really heard much from you, Ukip. So, what's your opinion on that?
That's the whole academisation programme is a bit of a bafflement. I think that schools should be free to make that choice themselves. I mean, some schools decided the academy route was the best for them because they were failing, there was issues, and some of those schools have actually done really well being academies. But equally, other schools have done very well being within the local authorities. And I think really the balance was actually quite good, I felt, and I still do feel that. So I'm baffled why the government have decided that they should force everybody to be an academy. I don't see that as a way to go. That says it makes sense.
So Grace Convent said no thanks, they should be allowed to say no thanks?
I think so, yes, absolutely. Any school that says, well, do you know what, no, actually, our arrangement is very good, we're happy with the way things are, why mess with that? I think that's a crazy thing to do. You know yourself, it's difficult to get schools to be a good school or an outstanding school as it is. Now, if they've become good or outstanding within the local authority, why change that? I just don't see it. I see that as a strange decision by the government to do that.
Crime and justice. Just going to go through a few issues.
Yeah,
here.
sure.
Crime and justice. You've had when the Chief Constable came to speak to the council, what were your impressions?
Wasn't impressed. Doesn't matter which way you cut it. If you take police off the streets, away from people, crime will go up. Crime will not be reported as often. If they're going to take away all the phones, in essence, and they want you to report it online. Well, people will think, do you know what, I just can't be bothered. It was already difficult. I've done it myself when you've seen some antisocial. I've seen some kids on a roof once a year or two ago over in Ockenden on top of the bowls club, and I thought, right, okay, let's ring the police and let's get them out here to sort this out. Got through to a line and it's hanging on for ages and ages. So it was already difficult. It's going to become almost impossible to contact the police, and they're only going to respond to crime if they build up a big enough profile of crime in an area. Well, I'm sorry, but people want the crime sorted out now. They don't want to wait till there's been 10 crimes in that area before the police even come to look at it. That's wrong. So, no, we do need more police. I'm a little bit torn on the issue of the police stations. I think they are right. The buildings, probably due to their own fault, mind you, have been left to neglect. And I think the money probably is better spent on frontline services than maintaining buildings. But we definitely need more police. And I think the PCSOs, who, when they were first announced years ago, I thought, well, they're not going to be effective. But having come into council and been out with the PCSOs and see the work they do, I completely changed my mind. They were very effective. They were visible. They were in the community. They knew who most of the troublemakers were by name, and they could go over, talk to them, sort issues out. They were very valuable, and I think it's a crime to withdraw that from the community. So, if there's anything we can influence, we would like more police, retain the PCSOs.
Excellent, thank you very much. And finally, things like planning, which is always fraught, I know you're fraught with, it's a minefield. But I've just been over to Chafford 100 to interview a resident concerned about those house proposal at the back of the Bannatyne. So, won't specifically refer to that, but the issue of the green belt and building and all those pressures, what role can UKIP play? You have two members on the planning committee.
Yeah.
What role do you think, does UKIP have a unique point of view on planning and the green belt in Thurrock?
I don't think we do have a unique point of view. I think lots of people are very protective of the green belt particularly. It's just that planning regulations have been changed in such a way that it's actually very difficult to protect it. Every time you see a bit of green belt, there seems to be a reason why actually you can build on there, and it always seems spurious to us. So it is difficult, it is an issue, but it's not just UKIP that want to protect it. I think most parties do. At the moment now, we are involved in a whole project to redo the local plan, and one of the things I've asked for, because there's lots of green belt in Thurrock, but I want to see on a map. I want to see the planning team produce a map which I can see all of the green bits on it and see all of the brownfield sites on it as well. And I've said that what we should do is, once we get this map with all the green belt land on it that we've got in Thurrock, is then we can sit down as a cross-party group to decide, look, there's going to have to be bits of that is inviolate, we cannot build on this, decide where those places are. And unfortunately we're in a situation where there are going to be bits where we're going to have to build on, because the housing situation is such that we're going to need to nick some bits. But we should come to that decision as a cross-party group to decide, look, we're going to have to allow a little bit of this here and there. But really and truly, we want to see the brown sites built on first. There's lots of brown sites in Thurrock that are not being developed purely because they're a little bit more expensive to develop than the greenfield sites. The developer loves a nice greenfield site, hasn't got to do too much work. Brownfield sites, lots of them, but they've got to clean it all up. Don't want to do that. So I think we should maybe find a way of making those a little bit more attractive to developers in future. So yeah, it's a work in progress, but that's the way we go.
And finally, if you do end up taking power in less than a month's time, I mean, you're a busy working man. Someone like John Kent, that's his job, if you know what I mean. Full time as a leader. How would you, would you really be able to leave your work at 5 o'clock and then go up to the council and run a multi?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I've already made it clear that should that be the case, then I would leave this job, my day job, and concentrate just solely on being leader of the council. Because as you say, it is a full-time job. You can't do two jobs. And I think that's a lot of people don't understand this. I mean, not necessarily the leader gets paid quite well, but a lot of these councillors, a lot of them work, and they don't get a lot of money for being a councillor really, and a lot of them put in a lot of hours. And I think sometimes councillors get a bit of a bad rap for taking loads of money off the taxpayer, when really it's not a lot, and there's some good councillors out there from all parties, and I think some people should have a little bit of consideration that democracy costs a little bit sometimes. But
at the end of the day, as they say, you all seem to, whatever political criticisms, etc., or praise, as a part, you seem to be enjoying being Thurrock Ukip. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is accurate. Yeah, to be honest, we've got a great team. We all work well with each other, and we've had a plan for a long time, and it's working. You know, we've increased the number of councillors. We hope to increase them again in May. But it is pure teamwork. I couldn't do what I do without Roy Jones. Without Roy, I'd be lost, because Roy's very good at reminding me to do stuff, and you know, I can bounce ideas off him, and he bounces ideas off me. We work very well with Tim. Tim tends to do the more public-facing stuff. He's out there doing stuff with yourself, and you know, in the papers, on the telly, on the radio. So, but as a team, we work really well together, and it's great when you're in a team. There's no real egos bouncing off each other. There's no real clashes of personality, and that's actually probably quite rare. And it is enjoyable. It's an enjoyable working environment, and we get on well, and hopefully new councillors come in and enjoy it just as much as we've enjoyed it.
Graham Snell, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mike.